fueled on the side of religion by an implicit sense, an ironic, anachronistic sense, that somehow the Bible, especially Genesis, is trying to teach us the true science, and that comes into conflict with Darwinian science and so forth. So how do you get beyond that? Religions have struggled with this. The Catholic Church came to grips with it formally in an encyclical by Leo XIII, who was a very conservative pope, in 1893, not too long after Darwin. And there he instructed Catholics, do not look for scientific information in the scriptures. That will prevent a lot of the kind of literalism that's causing so much unnecessary conflict between, especially evolution, or Darwin on the one hand, and religious communities on the other. So get beyond literalism is the big issue, and it's not going to be easy to do.
One of the conditions, it seems to me, is if one is going to move beyond into this productive conversation, is somehow diffusing the element of fear. And in essays that I've read, quite a few scientists were terribly shaken, I think, by events in Kansas with the attempt to impose an intelligent design requirement in the curriculum, and then in Dover, Pennsylvania, too. And there was a sense that science was under attack by politicians who were responding to certain constituencies. At the same time, you don't have a shortage of people who would claim to be religious in one sense or another who feel that they're under attack, too. But how does one go about diffusing this? Is there a way to do that, in that way, further the discussion? Dr.
Well, first of all, I want to just comment on the term scientism.
Please.
I listened very carefully to what you said about scientism, and I don't know anybody who's guilty of it. It seems to me that scientism has been invented as a sort of straw man or straw person, so that anytime anybody gets angry or anxious about science sticking its nose in something where they think science has no business sticking its nose, they get to say reductionism, scientism, and these are epithets that are supposed to freeze everybody in their tracks. Oh my gosh, it's scientism again. Nonsense. I don't think I know any scientists that are really guilty of the sort of caricature scientism that you're describing. I do know scientists who, like me, are naturalists. We're methodological naturalists. But that's just built right into the scientific method and the whole approach. That's not saying that there couldn't be supernatural things, but the burden of proof is on somebody who wants to invoke them. That's methodological naturalism. We're not going to let any scientist say, well, my experiment depends on a supernatural element, and if you don't believe in it, then you're not going to get the experiment. No, that's just we don't permit that. That's just completely out of bounds. That's naturalism. So I think that comparing the fundamentalist literalist with this imaginary scientism is, I don't recognize this. I don't accept that that's a legitimate comparison. I do think that there certainly are times when individual scientists and spokespeople for science speak with undue harshness and undue even disrespect about the follies of people who don't know their science. And I'm sure we could be more diplomatic. But I think it still is, I think we've had a lot of diplomacy for a long time. I think the time has come to say to people who say, hey, look, I'm entitled to my opinion, and I think that intelligent design is good science, we have to say, well, no, you're not actually really entitled to that opinion. No, the very idea that we're entitled to our opinions, if you examine it closely, doesn't make any sense. Well,
I think that we are on such an important and hot topic right now. This question, this word scientism, which is out there and has been both defined and refuted. I'd like to give Dr. Wilson and Dr. Haught a chance to respond to that, please.
I want to make 2 points. One is that science does involve rejecting ideas. And if any idea is worth rejecting over a period of centuries, it is what I would call the intervening God hypothesis. Whenever there's a hypothesis, perfectly good scientific hypothesis, that a supernatural agent interfered in the affairs of people, then that has failed again and again and again. And so there's every reason to reject the intervening God hypothesis, and that includes creationism in schools and so on. Actually, if you were to thoroughly reject the intervening God hypothesis, I think that would be quite shocking in terms of I mean, the Catholic Church doesn't even remotely do that. So I think that there's subtle forms of that, which if you really scrutinized it, then that would be a lot of work would be done. But the second point I want to make is that, and I'm eager to see how this plays with Dan here, is that I actually think you can get a lot of mileage out of thinking of religion, of science, as a religion that worships truth as its God, in which actually science is just like a religion, but its God is the truth. And that organizes the sacred, plenty of faith, and this whole system. The only difference, to be provocative, I'll say, between science as a cultural system that is designed to hold people accountable for what they say about the world, okay, is that is its God. And in every other respect, it has all the trappings of religion, and should. It could learn from religion. It could be stronger by having some of those trappings of religion.
Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. No one has mentioned tonight the name of Richard Dawkins, but
he did indirectly.
Okay.
I was going to just now.
Yeah, but I just saw a very brief clip, a wonderful interview of Richard Dawkins, Dr. Dawkins, on from Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. He said, "Is there anything other than scientific truth?" A rhetorical question, meaning, of course, no. Anyway, Dr. Haught,
That's scientism, as I would define it. And Dan has sponsored Richard Dawkins' work, probably as much as anyone else has. And recently, Richard said that it may be that humanity will never completely reach the goal of complete understanding. But I venture that if it does, it will be science, not religion, that leads us there. And then he says, if that be scientism, then all the better for scientism. So it's not as though the word is not being used and embraced. I mean, he's explicitly embracing it as his perspective, and I think it's very honest of him to do so, because it's only if we be honest about what our beliefs are can we begin